Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our live session today. My name is Larissa. I'm an event planner at Reactor, joining you from Brazil. Before we start, I have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. This session is being recorded and will be available to view on demand here on the Reactor YouTube channel within 48 hours. Keep an eye on the chat. We'll be dropping health links and checking for your questions. I will now turn it over to our speakers for today. Thank you all, and let's welcome Heini and Temo.
Hi, Teemu. How are you doing today?
Hello, Heini. I'm doing fine. And you?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. And we are here today for the Prepare for Exam Day of the Fabric Data Days. So we're going to have some, well, I could maybe say that we don't have so heavy information fact-wise, but we have some important information if you're about to take your exam that will hopefully help you ace that exam and not get confused by the experience of everything. So that's what we're here for today.
Something very practical.
Exactly. And so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Heini Ilmarinen. I am based here in Finland, and I'm a Microsoft Data Platform and Azure MVP. And in my day-to-day life, I work as a kind of like a data architect, data advisor, depending a little bit on the project. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Bruvo. And here you can also find all my social things where you can connect with me if you would like to and reach out later on. And as maybe like a hint, if you want to learn a little bit more about Fabric, I'm one of the instructors for Fabric Forge, where we have some really cool content around Fabric, both free content as well as something more advanced sections as well available there. And today I'm actually joined by Teemu, who is also one of the instructors there. So,
yeah, hello everyone. I'm Teemu Multanen, also one of the instructors of Fabric Forge, and also from Finland. And I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and a senior data engineer on my day job. But yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn as well and on Fabric Forge if you want to learn some Fabric. Yeah, let's go forward. So this session is part of the Data Days, 60 Days of Data and AI, powered by community. There are a lot of great sessions, a lot of other things like study groups and so on, free vouchers, of course. And you can check out the full schedule and information using the QR code there. Of course, as I mentioned already, get Fabric or SQL certified for free. It would be actually great to know what certification exams people in the chat are going to be aiming for. Do we have DP 600, DP 700 enthusiasts here, or maybe DP 800 or something like that? Would be great to hear.
and one of the really great ways that you can leverage for yourself if you are preparing for an exam is to join a study group. So you can follow the link and see if there's a study group that you would like to join to kind of keep you accountable when you are preparing for that exam and have a little bit of community around you when you are doing that.
And pretty much outside of the data days, you can join a user panel for Fabric IQ or SQL. I myself have been part of the Fabric user panel, being there on a couple of sessions, and I can really recommend if you want to talk with the people of Microsoft, of the products you like to be building things with. So that's a great way to give feedback and help them kind of evolve the products that you are using.
Yeah, I think that's always like a special opportunity when you get to connect with the people who are actually building the stuff.
Yeah.
And well, actually, June is quite close to an end at this point. So this is quite late. This session that we're doing today is quite late in this list of sessions that is listed here. But actually, sessions will continue through to August 6th, so there is much, much more to come. So even though in this list we're the second to last session, there is actually many more sessions coming up. And there is actually like later today, well, depending on which time zone you're on, it could be today or tomorrow. There's a SQL hackathon coming up as well. But today we're here for what to expect on exam day.
Yeah, exciting stuff, and we are only not even halfway there. So there's a lot of things coming up.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost so many things with the data days that it can be a little hard to stay on top of what is happening when, but you can kind of go into the schedule and pick and choose the parts that you would like to learn more about.
Yeah, and you have the Your Way link there as well. I hope our moderators can also share that link. There you can search by topic, for example, Fabric, DP700, and so on, and pick the topics that best suit your needs.
That's a really good hint. So we, of course, want to make this session as lively and interactive as possible. So also in the chat on the side of YouTube, you can find our moderators who are there to answer all your questions, and you can kind of participate in the session via the chat. And we have some really hardcore moderators today. So in the chat, we can find Valerie Junk, who is a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. She has really cool content around Power BI, and I'm always really amazed by all the knowledge that she has on that side, especially since I feel always so much in the deep end on that side. So I really recommend also following Valerie. She has some really cool YouTube content you can follow as well.
And another heavy hitter from the MVP community and more on the data engineering and architecture side, we have Aleksi Partanen in the chat. And he has a lot of great YouTube content helping you to get certified to use Fabric more efficiently, solve problems. And as it so happens, he is also part of the Fabric Forge instructor pool, one of the founding members. And also you can find a exam mock-up exam resources from CertiAce where you can test your skills if you can pass an exam, and you can find Alexi's all socials there. So what we'll be covering today, first of all, everything starts from scheduling your exam. That's the first part. Then understanding what the exam format is like, what is actually happening when you go to the exam and what you are going to be expecting. Then maximizing your efficiency for the exam day, how to really prepare. Then how to ace the case study. So case study is one of the formats of questions there that we'll be covering also later. And we'll be giving some tips on that. Then leveraging practice questions and assessments, we'll be having a demo from Heini at that point. And also preparing to take your certification exam overall. Yeah, live demos will surely be successful. I promise you that much. But let's just jump into it. First of all, scheduling your exam. There's kind of this step-by-step path how to do it. And first of all, you start from the official Microsoft certification exam website. So whichever you choose, you might have the DP700, DP600, whatever. You scroll down a bit, you'll find the scheduling option there. You need to select your country. So the cost is actually different between countries. And then you just click on the schedule there. And then you'll be required to submit your personal information. So this is kind of a thing you need to do before you can actually go check out what are the available times and so on. So you first start by submitting your personal information, and that will be then passed forward. Then you'll be choosing if you want to take the exam online or on-site. I think in Finland we don't have that many on-site opportunities, but what do you think, Heini? What is your favorite way to take the exam?
Nowadays, I've only been doing them online. Like after the COVID time, I've shifted completely to the online world. Before that, I actually used to go to the exam center and do it there. In a way, there's like, I guess, like a little bit less pressure because there's a computer there waiting for you that has all the required software there, and you don't have to worry about like, does your laptop meet the requirements and is the internet working, etc. So I guess there's like one factor less there. You just need to make it to the place in time and have your ID with you if you go on site.
Yeah, I also have done all my exams online, but what about our chat? Have we people there who have taken the exam? I know I saw Mike at least, and he is a big fan of on-site, if I remember correctly. So it would be great to hear if people are choosing to do it online or on-site. After that, you'll be choosing a language, and there are quite a bit of options, but not all the options. For example, we cannot take the exam in Finnish, and I am pretty glad that's not even an option, because I would probably fail. Because studying everything in English and then transforming it in your head to some other language is quite a bit of another layer there. Then basic stuff, accepting the agreements, NDA, and so on. It's pretty important that the NDA part, so anything you see during the exam, you cannot really talk about. For example, I had this question and so on. That's part of the NDA there. And then selecting your testing center, if available. You don't need to select your home address if you do it online. So it's just for the testing center part. And then everyone's favorite part, so entering your voucher code that you have got from this Great Data Days event.
I hope we can get the link into the chat as well, right on cue.
Definitely. And I love it how it's here in red, so we are emphasizing the point that we are going to be using vouchers now.
Yes.
Those are the great thing that we'll be also talking about today. Yeah, then you check out. Hopefully no need to show your money there as you had the voucher. And then verify the confirmation email. So you'll get an email saying, okay, you have this appointment there. And that's the thing there. Add to your calendar and keep studying. It's a good tip to still keep studying and book your exam early, because I can give you an example. I had quite a busy week and I was supposed to take the exam next week. And I had like a couple-minute window where I went to book my exam. And in Finland, when we look at a monthly calendar, each week starts from Monday. So, of course, I was going to book the exam for Tuesday. And as so happens, the calendar there started from Sunday. And I just went in quite quickly and selected the second day of the week. And I was like, okay, this will be Tuesday and I'll be taking my exam then. But as so happens, it was actually Monday and I missed my appointment then. So don't do that mistake.
Yeah, luckily you do get some email reminders, at least nowadays, that your exam time is coming up. So keep an eye on those and double check the date and time there.
I was like, it's coming up, but maybe tomorrow, I guess. So no hurry there yet, but it's a way to learn.
I've kept an eye on the chat a little bit, and it seems like we have a lot of fans of on-site for taking the exams. So I do think it kind of removes one factor that could potentially go wrong when you have like a set space where you are going to take it.
Yeah, definitely. I have another story of that if you want to hear it, because at my last job, I didn't have the admin access to my computer, so I needed to request admin password every time I needed to like update or install something. And my exam was coming up and I was opening the person view, the software on the computer, and it said that I have the old version and I have to have the newer version to be able to take the exam. So quickly sending the IT admin that please give me the password now, fast, and then getting the password and updating the software. But that was quite a hassle and required some extra focus there. So
Yeah, you can
it
rattle yourself up a bit with that kind of last minute
yeah,
hassle going on.
yeah,
And for me personally, like the scheduling the exam is the best way to ensure that I actually do some studying. If I never schedule the exam, I'm never going to study. Once I have it on my calendar, then I can kind of get myself around to checking the exam requirements and doing something towards being able to take the exam when it has been scheduled. So having a bit of like deadline for yourself, at least for me personally, is really helpful.
yeah, definitely. And vouchers help with that because they come with
Yes.
a deadline. It's not a strict one, but it is there. So you need to book your exam before a certain date, which I don't remember by heart right now, but I guess we can find it out somewhere. But as you now have scheduled your exam, you are keeping up your studying, and then you'll go to your appointment. And hopefully, our upcoming tips can help you with that appointment.
Yeah, it's really useful if you understand a little bit about the question formats when you go to the exam and know a little bit how the exam is going to look. And I'm actually going to show that a bit later on. There's like a way to walk through what the exam experience is going to be like for you. But if we think about the format of the exam, there are different kinds of questions that can come up for you. So there's like multiple choice. There can be some like build list, drag and drop, case studies, etc. All kinds of these different question types that come up. And I would say like just seeing in a list like, hey, these are the question types, it doesn't really say much other than there are different kinds of questions there and they have different formats. So it can be really helpful to kind of walk through the experience of what it will look like if you've never taken a Microsoft exam before. For the exams, you have 100 minutes to do the exam. There can be in some cases like extensions to it, but just kind of like mentally prepare for the 100 minutes. And then when you are booking the exam, you will see if you would have some extension. At least there has been some like second language extensions in the past. And then there's that important choice of the location that we talked about already. So you can either do it on site in a testing center or virtual. And I think there's some differences, like how much testing centers are there available in whichever region. So it could be that for you, there's not like a testing center close by. So it could make sense to do it virtually. There's the convenience that you don't have to drag yourself anywhere to do that. And then if we look at the scoring of the exams, each of the exam has a cut score, and that is always 700. So if you get 700 or above, then you will pass the exam. But this does not actually mean 70%, like you got 70% of the questions correct. And also some of the questions, you might get more points from them. And then also this kind of 700 is somehow scaled. And this is always highlighted, but we don't have, of course, information what that actually means. So I think the takeaway from here is like, don't try to count during the exam. Am I getting about 70% correct? Because you don't know necessarily if that is the actual requirement. It could be less, it could be more. We don't know for sure. So during the exam, just focus on doing the exam and like doing your best to answer the questions correctly.
Yeah. If you have time to count your points, then I think you have time to go through learn documentation and earn some more points. I guess that would be the more important part.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that too. And this cut score is actually something that is determined during the exam development phase. And it is then scaled taking into account the kind of what is the target difficulty for that exam and reflected that to the audience who should be taking the exam itself. And this is something that can also update with time when there are updates coming to the exams themselves. So this kind of cut score can be adjusted at that point as well. But in essence, I would not worry too much about the points. Just do your best. And I think kind of all the strategies about how to take the exam itself are much more helpful to focus on. in the end, you will find out anyway at the end of the exam, did you get a passing score or did you not? So we will find out every time what happened with our exam.
Yeah. And it's always a happy time when you see the fireworks. Those are the main thing. Can we have some fireworks in the chat?
That is definitely true. And then we can talk about like how do you actually do things efficiently on exam day?
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic. So preparing for your exam day and what to actually expect then. So first of all, the proctor will verify your identity. So it's a yeah, I think we are jumping quite ahead there. But first of all, if you are doing this, for example, home, then you will have quite a bit of steps waiting for you that will probably confuse you for the first time. So
Yes.
before the proctor can verify your identity, you will first need your like passport or driving license, and you need to take a picture of it with your mobile phone. So basically, mobile phone sounds outdated, but yeah, you are first opening the software. Then you will get a QR code. You are opening it with your phone. Then you have to take the picture of your ID. After that, you are going to take picture of yourself. After that, you are going to take picture pointing right from your table to the left of your table, behind your table, and on the front of your table. So that's the kind of the pictures you have to take then, and there are quite these important things you need to remember. So first of all, when you're taking the pictures, you need to show like your whole table and that the table is empty, that you only have like your laptop there. I always take my exams on the kitchen table. I just go and throw everything on the floor and then just put my laptop there, and that's like the way to get started quickly. Of course, you cannot have like Fabric 101 books to your right and left, but other than that, it's not really that strict. If you have a bag of bread on the next table, it doesn't get you disqualified, or at least hasn't for me. But yeah, then comes the point when the proctor will verify your identity. If the pictures are okay, everything's clear, then they won't even talk to you. They will just unlock your exam, which is the step 2 here. It has been like, if my pictures haven't had all the corners of the table, then they are like, please show with your webcam that your table is actually empty and we can see all the corners there. And then you'll get the unlock the exam, and then the heart rate is going up and you can get started.
Yeah, if you're of course doing this in person, you just walk to the on-site person and they check your identity. So that process is a whole lot easier if you go and do the exam itself on site.
Yeah, but you can start the process half an hour before your appointed time, and whenever the process is complete, you can get started. So it's quite lenient with that. Yeah. Title screen with exam name. Hopefully you have booked the right exam. If it says something else than what you were supposed to do, then I don't know what to do at that point. Maybe call for the proctor, or then just take the other exam and hope for the best. Yeah, again, the NDA for the exam. So do not talk about anything you see in the exam. Of course, you can talk about like what we are talking here today, what kind of questions there are, what are kind of the topics that are raising up more often than others, but that of course changes between every person, as there is a bigger pool of the questions and not everyone gets all the questions, so it will be a very different experience for other people.
Then we actually have this instructions page that I have never myself paid attention to. But apparently each of the exams do have this, and it has actually some information about like what kind of sections are in the exam, how much time do you have, etc. And well, if I were doing my first exam now, I would hope to get the recommendation to actually, this portion of the time is not yet taking away from your actual exam time. So you can just chill and take it easy. And you can actually take the time to read those instructions and see if there's anything useful there for you for kind of like heading into the actual exam section. So there's like a separate time for all these preparatory steps that is not taking away from your actual exam time. So at this point, we can still relax and take it easy. And then there's also this skill survey at the start of each of the exams. So it's kind of checking for how much experience do you have around the different areas that are covered in that particular exam, and to kind of see like how much do you feel like you have experience in that. Are you actually doing it in your daily work, or are you just getting started with it?
Actually, just a couple of things popped back into my mind about the verifying your identity part. If you are taking the exam at home, there are still a couple of steps. So you need to have a working microphone, and it will be tested there. So you just run the test, you speak something like test, 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 and so on. And then they confirm that they can actually hear you. And then you have to have the webcam, and they will also check that the stream is running smoothly. So they will be monitoring you for the whole exam there. They need to hear what you hear, so nobody can like give you the answers there from the other side of the computer, for example. And they need to see you, so you don't have that Fabric 101 book that you are reading. Or Fabric Forge open, but don't do that.
Then, once we've done all the other preparatory steps, then we get to taking the actual exam, and the exam time starts that way around.
Yeah, and then it's just the time to take the exam. So review any questions that you want to revisit. So you have this option when you get these questions, you can mark them for review later. So you have this little checkbox there. So I want to get back to this question later. And when you have like answered all the questions, you will be able to check the list and see what you wanted to review later. So if you are like, okay, this doesn't pop into my head right now, I maybe want to check this later from the Learn documentation, you can just click on it and come back to it later. But keep in mind that there are these like clusters of questions. I think it's always just a one set of questions, and it's usually like 6 questions, if I remember correctly, or 3, might be 3 or 6. And it will tell you very clearly that once you have answered these questions, you cannot get back to these questions exactly. So you have those 3 questions that have like pretty much the same context around them, and then they have like a couple of answers that you can select from, and then once you turn those in, you cannot get that back.
Yeah, for me, when I took my very first Microsoft exam, I was so freaked out at the beginning of the exam that I had actually this section come up first, where you cannot go back. And yes, it clearly says that you cannot go back, but I really wasn't thinking straight. So then I was just like going through the questions, and then I realized at the end of that section that like, oh no, I actually can't go back and change any of these answers. But anyway, the exam ended up fine, but it was kind of like a wake-up call that just, hey, just relax a little bit. Like there's no like fire anywhere, and you can just read each question carefully and take the time to answer it and think your answers through as well.
As you are saying that you can take your time and read everything carefully, how do you manage your time during those exams? Have you taken multiple exams, for example?
I have taken many exams, actually. I have a bunch of Azure certifications as well. I always keep an eye on the timer, because there's a timer in the exam in the top right corner. So you can keep an eye of kind of like how much time is there left. And I kind of keep an eye on that and see like how far am I through the questions, and try to keep in mind like, okay, I should be about halfway at this point at least. But I have also noticed that, there is always time to read the questions. Like, I don't have to try to jump to answering it without reading it. That's not necessary. I can read it. But then on the other hand, I take an approach where I very easily mark things for review, and I try to just get some kind of answer in first, and I don't spend too much time thinking about the question on the first go for the sections where I can mark them for review. And then I can come back to them later, because then I can actually use my time where it makes sense, and not like that I just, spend time because I think I have a lot of time. So be mindful of the time. I think that's just the best hint. And I've had once time run out and I still managed to pass the exam. So also, it's not necessarily that if you run out of time, as long as you're far enough in the exam, you might still be able to pass.
Yeah, I was wondering about the multiple exams, because my experience is that I have had kind of different experiences with different exams, and I'm not saying that it's like the difficulty of the exam. So even some like that I consider easier, or that have felt easier, have taken more time, maybe more like due to the how the questions read. So
Yeah,
if you
definitely.
get a question that has like this like 20 rows of text, where they're building like this context that, okay, you have this resource and you have this resource and this is required and you need to do this. So I guess like building that up in your head and setting the puzzle pieces together really takes time. So it's not really for me about the difficulty of the exam. I think one of the like AZ 104 that I think is quite a hard one, considered quite widely. I think I had like 20 minutes left there. But then for like DP 600, I nearly ran out of time. So it's kind of just what kind of questions you are facing and how do you tackle those. So I still have some learning to do, how to get those like big context and do that faster. I think that's one of the main points. But what you said about the tip that don't overthink things. So just go, do I understand what this means right now? If I don't, then just mark it for review and let it mellow in your head for when you take the other questions there. So
and sometimes another question will like remind you of something. It will trigger something in your mind and you're like, aha, I know that other question as well now. So kind of like give yourself a little bit of chance for that to happen as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's because there are a lot of questions on the same topics, because you are, for example, taking a Fabric certification exam. So all the questions are regarding Fabric, and some of those can give you hints about the other questions. So it's good to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
So anything else about the time management side?
Not yet. Could be that there's some other things that pop into mind later.
Yeah, and it's a good topic, as we have the clock also here showing us that how much time we have left. So
exactly, have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, training for the exam right here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Once you have reviewed everything, answered the questions you want to answer, you'll just submit the exam for scoring. And then there are still, they keep the suspense up, as they allow you to provide comments about any item that could be improved, which is, of course, on top of your mind when you are nervous about seeing the score of the exam, which you will then receive.
Luckily, unless you're taking like a beta exam, you do receive your result right away after you have taken it. And then, of course, if you get a passing score, then the main thing is to just celebrate. Easy peasy.
Yeah. We can go through some ideas for that later. But
yes, definitely. Well, with this, there are many, many different strategies how you can go about maximizing your time and being efficient on the exam day. So, of course, you should answer every single question, because you are not being like, if you get something wrong, you don't get minus points. So, even if you don't know an answer for something, guess is still a better option than leaving it blank, because then there's a small chance that you will get it correctly anyways. And then the second point is the marking the questions for review that you're not sure about. I sometimes maybe mark maybe too many, and then when I'm going through them again, I'm just like, okay, I don't, I'm just taking the review tab off instead of actually thinking about the question again. But it's kind of, you've had some time to process and think like, yeah, I actually do know this answer, so I don't have to try to like overthink it. I think that's like one of the best recommendations, not to overthinking it, as Teemu said. And the one thing to keep attention to is that there are some questions that you cannot come back to. So keep an eye on that, read the instruction part, carefully enough so that you actually understand what is allowed. And yeah, go with your gut and don't overthink it. Most of the time, the initial thought you have about the response for that particular question is correct. And if you start to overthink it, you will actually change it to a wrong answer. Not, of course, 100% of the time, but sometimes. And yes, there is Microsoft Learn available, but timing-wise, you're not going to have the time to check that for every single question. So, have that strategy to check the questions where you check them for review. And then I also think about like, which answers will I find quickly from Microsoft Learn? If I know it's a little bit of like more like applied question, unless you're able to like specify what is the specific thing you need to find from Learn, it could be actually really hard to find the answer. So I also think about like, how do I maximize my points, even though I don't know what the points are exactly, but I'm like, where can I actually find the correct answer as quickly as possible? Because there's not endless time. And for me, the first time I did an exam that had Microsoft Learn available, yeah, I was running out of time, and then I had to like speed through the very last questions because I was like overusing it even for things I didn't actually need it for, because I was like, oh, I have Learn available, and then I got carried away and forgot to pay attention to the time. And before that, I had done countless exams without Microsoft Learn and had been fine without it. So it was a little bit funny for me. I was like, okay, that didn't quite make sense. And well, eventually it ended up totally okay, but it kind of threw me off a little bit, not having had that before and then having it available.
Yeah, I think the thing about Learn is that specific tools are referenced in a lot of documentation.
Yeah.
Like when you want to know about some specific thing and you just like search for it, it is referenced in like, I don't know, tens of documentations is enough for me to like, don't know where to look for this specific thing. But there's this tip, I guess Alexi always loves mentioning this tip. So I guess he can write it in the chat as well. But you can filter the results. So for example, if you are taking DP 600 or DP 700, you can filter the Microsoft Learn results to only include Fabric related results. So that will help a lot. Yeah, preparing your space. As we don't have much experience from the testing center, but of course Heini does. But yeah, you have to bring the government official ID as well.
Well, let's see if we can get back to presentation mode.
Yeah, just a moment.
While Teemu is getting the screen ready, I can maybe continue on preparing your space for the testing center. Of course, you don't need to like prepare any space on the testing center side. You just show up, have your ID, make sure like when you're booking your exam, your profile has your name written in the same way as it is on your official ID. That's really important. And then you are put into a particular space in the testing center and provided the machine that you're going to use for doing the exam. And the proctor is going to start that exam for you. So in that way, it's quite an easy process. But an important thing is that don't read the questions out loud, because that is also, one of the aspects is that you are also being like, you're not getting help from anywhere. Of course, in that case, that's not really helping, I guess, but you are also oftentimes in a space where there are other people taking their exam as well. And always the recommendation is to please rather show up too early than making yourself stressed out about being there right on time and then being like, oh, will I miss my exam time? It's not actually like, there's a little bit of a buffer in which time you can show up, but I would recommend being there at least like 15 minutes early so that you don't have to stress about it, because it's always stressful if you're having to think about, will I make it or not?
Yeah. I think at least for the virtual option, it's great that you have this like half an hour window, but of course, do not leave it to the last minute. So you have this quite lenient window there that you can start the check-in and complete your exam there. Yeah, complete all the system tests that I talked about earlier, that you have the microphone, webcam, and you have all the pictures of your room, and clear the room of mirrors and mess. I think I have been clean enough, as they haven't told me to clean up my room. So that's a great thing there. And only have one monitor / screen. So this is a important one. And I have heard a lot of people have like problems with that. They are covering their monitors with like sheets and all that kind of things. But as I mentioned earlier, I always take my exams on my kitchen table, and I only bring my laptop, so I don't have any other screens there. So that's quite simple and easy way to reach these requirements. And no interruptions. So you are taking it from home. Make sure that nobody else is going to be coming home at that point, walking in the room. If they see someone in the webcam, that's a fail instantly. Of course, there's this thing that you cannot have like windows either, or you have to have curtains there. And I myself live in the 5th floor.
I know that one.
Yeah, because someone can just walk behind that window, and that's not a good thing. But
true.
Yeah, but from the 5th floor, there haven't been anyone outside my windows yet, so I got that going for me, which is nice.
Yeah, same for here on the 2nd floor. Yeah, with the virtual option, if you find yourself starting the check-in time at the time of your exam start, don't panic. There is a buffer there as well. Ask how I know. But you can still just walk through the check-in process and get your exam going. So there's no need to panic in that case as well. But for your peace of mind, it's really good to start well ahead of time when the check-in period opens.
Yeah. Now,
all right,
we are getting to the fun part of live demos. So are you ready, Heini?
Yes, I'm definitely ready. So, of course, like the biggest resource when you're preparing for an exam is to go to the particular certification page that you're about to take. I opened the Fabric Analytics Engineer Associate exam for an example, but of course, open the page that you are going to be focusing on yourself. So there's actually some of the sections here that we talked about before. So there's, of course, some resources that you can use to prepare for the exam. So the different Learn modules that are relevant for that particular exam. And then there's also different methods in which you can practice for the exam. And before we go to those, I want to also show that here is the schedule exam point. So if you scroll down long enough, you will find the button. And as said, you need to choose the country where you are located for your exam. And then at the very end of the page, there is also this certification resources portion. And for me, the resource that I use most is the study guide for each exam. So this is where it's really like listed point by point. What are the goals for the exam and what are the things that are measured? So essentially, I go here and I go through point by point and I'm like, do I know how to implement workspace level access controls? Yes, I do. Okay, I don't have to care about that. What about item level access controls? Yes, that's fine. And I kind of find the points that I don't know and I focus on those in my preparation for the exam. So this really like shows the things that are measured. So if you go through the list for the exam that you're taking, you are very well off and well prepared for that particular exam. So that's kind of my favorite resource.
It's a great resource to start with and to end with. I think it's work for both. So
yeah,
you get
definitely.
the idea what you need to know, and then you can like go through it again and do it exactly what you just said.
Exactly. And then there's actually some other additional really helpful resources here. So there is actually like the practice assessment available that has practice questions for the particular exam that you want to take. So this one is, for example, for the DP600, and these are kind of, they try to emulate the topics that would be covered in that particular exam. So you can go through the questions and you know, answer the question, and then you can check your answer. I was like, oh, it's green, but oh no. I was like, I did not read the question at all, so that would have been funny to be able to pick the right one, but no, it was actually incorrect. Damn it. So then you actually get the correct answer, and then you also get some explanation for that and the actual link where you find more information from there.
I really recommend taking this practice assessment before you start studying, but do not check the answers. Because if you just start by trying to get the answers and then check the answers, it will just become a memory game at some point.
Yeah.
So basically you can test how well you are doing at that point, and you will get this assessment like these are the areas that you already knew quite well, and these are the areas that you didn't. And then when you are getting closer to the exam day and doing these like last moment assessments of how you are doing, this benchmarking, then you can check the answers and like use it for studying again.
Yeah.
But if you start with checking all the answers, then it will kind of lose the point there.
Yeah, and these practice exams don't have as big a pool of questions as, for example, the exams themselves. So if you kind of take it multiple times, you will start to remember the correct answers for them. So you kind of lose the benefit of that if you check the answers right away. So that's a really great tip of how to use this efficiently. But you can then kind of walk through the whole exam. There are a bunch of questions here. So for example, this practice assessment has 50 questions relating to that exam. So really useful resource. But this does not actually look like the exam experience that you have when you go and take the exam. So another resource that you can use, especially if you have not taken a Microsoft exam before, is use the exam sandbox. So you can find it again on the link from the certification page, and then you can open that Sandbox experience. And this actually walks you through kind of what are the pages that come across for you when you start the exam. So, you know, there are some of the pre-information steps that we talked about. There's an exam summary. So, this exam is 8 hours and there are how many questions are there, etc. And there's going to be some standalone questions and a case study. And this one also apparently has a lab in it as well. And so you kind of get to walk through the different stages that there are to taking the exam. And there's the instructions portion that as well that I have not really paid attention to myself. And you get to walk through all of those. So you can see that for this preliminary part, you had a timer there in the top right that is showing how much time do you have left. But this is not the exam's timer yet. So once I click start the exam, this is now then that my exam time has started. So I am good to go. And this sandbox, the questions are a little out there. They're not very like relevant to the actual exam that you might be preparing for. But if you have not taken an exam before, or this kind of exam before, I really recommend to just check what kind of question types are there, because then you are kind of familiar with these and you don't have to get like freaked out about like, what is this kind of question, when you have walked through them once. So for example, here is a sample question. What is your favorite sound? This does not even have a right answer, it's a preference. So which two fruits make a great snack? So also, like, even with the real exam questions, it's good to like read carefully the questions, because sometimes it might say like pick 2 or pick 3 and etc. So in that way, it's really good to kind of like read what is it actually asking for, what is the question. And here we have the tab for reviewing later. So if we want to mark any questions for review later on, then we can click those. But again, I'm not going to click through all of this because there is quite many questions here, but you get to kind of see all the different question types that are possible here. And this has a really nice variety of those. So for example, there are actually these kinds of questions in the exam where you have to drag some options to the right and put them in the right order. So place the slices of bread on the plate, add stuff, and then you can drag them around here as well. I did not read them, so that is not actually a correct answer. But anyways, you can walk through this on your own if you have not gone through an exam before. This is a really good place to start. I already kind of, in the meanwhile, I did kind of click through the beginning part. So at the end of the section, you get to this portion where you can go into the review mode. So you can, for example, click one of the questions that you have checked for review, and then you are able to navigate through them. And in this case, I only had actually one for review. So there are instructions here how you can go into the review mode and then get out of it as well. The nice thing about this is that you see that now once you kind of finish this section, you cannot go back. So it gives you actually asks you, are you sure that you want to do that? And I think one of the unique question types that are in the exams is the case study questions. And I think people have different approaches to how they tackle these questions. So what's your approach, Teemu, to these ones?
Well, I first take a bit of a look at the overview, what we are working with here. So I get this kind of an idea of it being an actual business case that it is trying to mimic here. And then check a bit of the existing environment, just kind of what kind of these titles we have here.
Yeah.
I don't go and read through all of these, but I just say, okay, we have this Active Directory environment, so probably has something to do with accessing things. Then we have this infrastructure problem statements, okay, and then I start reading the questions. And whenever I read a question, I kind of go in, what is the requirement that is talked about here? Because often the requirements are for business cases. There are quite a distinct set of those. Mm-hmm. So you have access requirements, you have some safety requirements, you have performance requirements, and that kind of things. So I read the question, and does this concern the access control or the governance part of things? And then check, okay, well, in this example, we have just technical requirements, but yeah, okay, what are the technical requirements here? Is this question regarding the technical requirements? Of course, questions can be regarding multiple different topics here, but yeah, that's my kind of way of tackling it. But I think you had something else in mind.
Yeah, so once I kind of enter a case study section, it starts like this. I might check the overview as well in the beginning, but I actually then go in and read through all the questions. So I actually like go through all 3 of them in this case, and just like go through them and read like what are the questions about, just the questions. Then I go into like the more information. I'm like, okay, where is the relevant info for this particular question? And then I go like very pointedly and try to find the specific information. And that works for me. And I've talked with other people, and it seems like people have different strategies. So just, think what strategy maybe works best for you. And when you take your next exam, you can test that out and see how it works for you. You can always go back and forth both between the questions. So I can like go back a question, or I can always access the information in relation to the case as well. So it's quite easy to navigate around, so you can go back and forth however you might need to. So you don't kind of have to have everything answered on the first go. That makes it easier. But yeah, this is something I would recommend a lot to check out. You get a sense for the navigation. Of course, if you've done multiple exams before, you're probably already familiar with it, but it can be a very helpful resource.
Yeah, I can say that I didn't go through this Sandbox before my first exam. And
yeah, me neither.
Whenever I clicked on the next page and I was like, oh, what is this? And then you have this all kinds of different question types, and then everything ending up in the case study, and all you have done at this point is gone through the practice assessment and had only multiple choice questions. Yeah. So it was, quite an interesting experience. And of course, you cannot experience that yourself if you have gone through the Sandbox earlier. So.
Yeah, I think when I took my first exam, there wasn't a Sandbox available. It was several years ago. So there wasn't one. I discovered after the first exam that I took that, yes, there are actually YouTube videos where people show the different exam types. So there was some kind of material available, but I just didn't know how to find it and just went blindly into the first exam and was totally like panicked in the beginning. Then I was like, okay, breathe. This is not going to work out if I'm just panicking through the whole exam.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, breathing is a great tip there.
Yes, that actually is a very important tip.
Your brain requires oxygen, so that's
Exactly. Breathing is helpful. But I think with that, we can kind of get back to the slides and continue.
Yep. We'll be still going through a bit of a recap here. So prepare to take your certification exam. So first you need to schedule it, and maybe a little side conversation here, as we have plenty of time left. Have you heard any opinions if people should be scheduling the exam in English, even though that is not their native language, and they have the option to take it in their native language?
I would say it depends what language you use to study, and maybe what language you use in your work. But especially what language you study in. So for me, like I study in English. Yes, I might actually speak about the topics in Finnish in my work, but I have all my tools in English. So if there was an option to do the exam in Finnish, I would have no idea what the terminology actually is. I would not be able to figure out what are they even talking about in some cases, probably. So for me, it makes sense. Like even if there was a Finnish option available, I would still take it in English.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's options to go through the Learn paths from Microsoft in quite many languages. I think I've seen that because I'm in Finland, they recommend the Finnish modules for some of the topics, but not all of them. But yeah, I personally also study in English, work in English, speak in English. Like,
yes,
it just makes sense to take the exam in English. But yeah, let's hop on to the next point on the list. So use the study guide to track your progress. Well, we already mentioned that it's good to start with and to end with, but you can also track your progress with it.
Yeah.
Go back to it many times. Practicing the product. Of course, you are working towards a Fabric certification. So the best thing you can do is actually go there and work with things. Create resources, items there, use the items, and so on. And schedule time in your day week to study. So consistency is key. My consistent studying is usually full day today, tomorrow, and day after that, and then taking the exam. But do not do that. An hour a day, half an hour a day, whatever. Just make time for it. Take practice tests. We already talked about that one. Do not look at all the answers in the beginning. Just once you really have gone through everything and need to learn more, then leverage community resources. There are a lot of them. The Data Days is a great event, again, with a lot of free resources available. And join a study group. Those are also a thing now with the Data Days. So that's great.
And with that, we are ready to wrap up. We are on time. So remember, get your voucher for taking the exam. And once you have your voucher, book your exam so that you are for sure studying in time and actually making progress towards that exam. And then lastly, I would just like to remind that there are still a bunch of data days coming up. So keep an eye on the schedule and pick the sessions that are really relevant for you. Yeah. But thanks everyone for joining. This was a really fun one. And it was really nice, Teemu, to go through this session with you and hear all your stories about taking exams as well. It was a really fun time.
Thanks a lot, Heini. Had a lot of fun. And thanks for everyone watching. I saw that the chat was very active, so I hope everyone had fun.
I saw that too. Thanks, everyone, and make sure to get your voucher and book your exam.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining, and thanks to our speakers and moderators for today's session. Here at the Reactor, we are always looking to improve our experience. So if you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find the link to our survey on the screen or in the chat. Good luck with your exam, and we'll see you on the next one.